excited to have you here. Welcome to Seattle. And the first of 5 sessions we're going to have for the Systems and Structures track. My name is Brandon Savage. I'm going to be your track lead over the course of the next 24 hours. And my goal here, and kind of the goal of this entire conference, is really to help spark innovation. And I hope what will happen in these 5 panel discussions that we'll have over the next 3 days is not just to reflect back things to you that you already know, but hopefully to serve as a catalyst that we're going to get interesting people, interesting companies, interesting ideas talked about here that will get you thinking about ways that you could perhaps approach things a bit differently, try some new things, and make some changes within your companies to take advantage of some of the technology that's out here in the housing industry. So to start off today, I want to thank Infinity Energy Construction as our sponsor for this particular session. We have a representative who's on the panel today from Infinity, so I'll kind of let him introduce himself and the company here in just a moment. So I'm going to kind of transfer from here. Our goal is we're going to wrap up just a little bit before 4 o'clock because you all have some boardroom sessions to go to. But we're hoping to have a really good discussion about this current topic, structure and systems innovations for energy efficiency and sustainability. So I'm going to step over here to the table and introduce you to our lovely track panelists today. You'll notice if you're doing the math here that we've got 5 pictures on the screen and we've got 4 of us here at the table. I'm going to start off with Nick Brown, who is the president at Build Smart Group. He is not here at the table with us, but using Zoom tech. Actually, I guess I'll introduce myself first. Let me do myself, and then we'll introduce Nick. So my name is Brandon Savage. I am an instructor at Kansas State University. I know a lot of you are from Big 12 country. Raise your hand if you're a Big 12 country. Yeah, a few of you. So sorry, but go Cats, Big 12 champions. That was exciting on Saturday. I teach in the business school there, operations, supply chain. I also work for a company called Vozic that does AI, machine learning to help with recurring revenue, customers to reduce churn. I did my MBA at Wharton, and when it comes to housing, like why am I here? I do not claim to be an expert in most of these areas. I'm a good questioner, and I think hopefully a good moderator, and I hope to be able to keep the discussion going today. One area that I have been involved in housing over the last few years, I do serve on our local board for Habitat for Humanity. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that on Wednesday because I've invited some people that I associate with that are doing some really interesting things in our community in Manhattan, Kansas at Habitat, but stay tuned for that. So now I'm going to turn the time over to Nick Brown, who was able to join us remotely and did some pre-recording, and I'm going to ask Nick to introduce himself, tell us about him and his company. So Nick, take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Nick Brown. I'm a Southern California-based energy consultant. So I'm often the only voice of energy and conservation and efficiency on a project. I help make sure that the project meets the California Energy Code, what we call Title 24 here in the state, as well as teach classes for the statewide Energy Code education team we call Energy Code ACE, and classes on topics like all-electric homes has really become hot. I teach that for Southern California Edison, classes on heat pumps for PG&E. So we've had a lot of changes in just the past few years since we came to you in Seattle last year in the panel with CR and Mike Mancini talking about how to differentiate our new homes using some of these innovations. So glad to be here. Sorry I can't be there in person though.
All right, next up, we've got Alan. Alan, tell us a little about yourself and your company.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Alan Cape with Ream Manufacturing. We're a global company making HVAC equipment, water heating equipment, pool heating, as well as commercial refrigeration. I'm from our water heating side, and I'm here to talk about things that we're seeing and changes on the water heating high efficiency side. We operate in around 80 plus countries, but my focus is on North America. Within that space, I work with building new construction part of the business, but also I work with utilities, influencers, NGOs, people who are setting the focus on energy efficiency. And so putting that with the new construction, really, they work well together on what we're seeing in the market today with a lot of decarbonization. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second.
Thanks, Alan. Next up, Kenny.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having us. Thanks for letting us sponsor this. My name's Kenny Kingery. I'm the National Sales Manager for Infinity Energy Construction. We're a solar, battery, and EV installer. We're mainly based out of California. We're nationwide for the most part. We grow more states every year as adoption takes place. But we're glad to be here and help educate you guys on solar and batteries as they become super popular and the adoption rate takes place in your guys' states. And I want to help you guys answer any questions you have about that. So.
And last up, Steve.
Hey, everybody. I'm happy to be here. My name is Steve Herbert. I'm the Director of Global Business Development at Samsung SmartThings. I've been in the business about 8 years, and I'm here to talk a little bit about SmartThings Energy, which is our smart home energy management solution. It works within our free app, SmartThings. As you guys are probably familiar with it in the builder industry, it's a very popularly used smart home system. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how builders can use SmartThings Energy as a way to help homeowners become more aware of their energy consumption and to find ways to cut that back.
All right, so to start off the discussion, the question that I wanted to ask each of our panelists here is why is this topic, conservation or sustainability, efficiency, why is it important to this industry? And to give the first answer to that, we'll ask Nick that question. Nick, what do you think?
I'm really glad you used that term conservation in queuing this up. Not because it's the right word, because it's the wrong word in many ways. And let me say why. I think our industry has largely failed at getting people excited to buy new homes using energy efficiency. It's been a failure. We've reached those who were going to buy the new homes because of that anyway. We've failed to reach many others. So conservation is not the way we're going to make this pay for our businesses. But why is it important? It's still very important. But the reason we should be talking about it is in terms of lower utility bills and what you can do with the money you free up. Satisfaction at living with a smaller footprint, that I think gets to more people. And most of all, living in a healthier home. What we've not done a good job of as an industry, in my opinion, is communicate just how living in a home with a better envelope, a home with less emissions indoors through all electric technologies like heat pumps, can improve the health of our family, improve how the people who work from home in a home office are performing at a higher level, the quality of our sleep, the chance of getting respiratory illnesses like asthma, which are a big deal here in California and really all over the country. That's, I think, what we've got to talk about, the terminology we have to use in selling these differentiated homes, which can be so much superior to the used homes down the street. I'd also add, in the future segments, we're going to talk about why electrification, but also renewable energy production, producing your own energy on your roof, potentially having a battery storage system to manage the peaks and valleys of that process. And hopefully, increasingly, I'm seeing smart panels being installed in conjunction with the solar and battery systems so that the power can be routed to the refrigerator, certain lighting circuits, certain power outlets to recharge phones in the case of a blackout automatically. Those resiliency benefits are the other thing that can speak to a ton of home buyers for whom conservation doesn't get them out of bed in the morning.
Okay, so I think it kind of teed up parts of what each of you is doing. So who wants to expand on that? What do you guys think?
I mean, I can kind of start. A lot of what he talks about and the code that he works on specifically in California Title 24 is a big part of my job and what we do, actually. So renewable energy is hand in hand with conservation, and it, saving money on utility bills is absolutely probably the #1 reason you hear about it the most. And adding people are going to start buying EVs like crazy. Adding batteries for grid maintenance issues and for saving extra money on your utility rates. All of that's huge for what we do as well. And he hit the nail on the head with how we want to bring it up, because it is conservation, but really it's how you manage your own home and your own finances, really, with a lot of those tied in to help you understand how you consume energy in your house better and more efficiently.
Alan?
Sure. I think Nick teed that up pretty well. Your home buyers, your consumers, that generation that's coming up, they're all interested in their own sustainability, their carbon footprint, and they want to be connected, right? And so most of our adoption rate of high efficiency technology has been mainly code driven. We're starting to see some proactive adoption rate because of that sustainability focus and wanting to be good stewards of resources. So that's what we're seeing. And within our industry, with the heating and air and both water heating, we're generally probably 60+% of your energy costs in your home. So we think we're seeing it and hearing it, and so we're trying to do things to help parallel that with your homeowner base, with products that communicate and also lower their energy costs, and then also reduce their carbon footprint as well.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, sustainability is a super important topic at Samsung right now. I think we're leading with that at the Consumer Electronics Show coming up because it's so important to us. It's really kind of in everything that we're doing right now. 4 years ago when we talked about how do we differentiate our platform, energy came to mind as the next sort of thing that you could use an automated system in the home to automate energy savings. And I think what we're all talking about here is a new standard, right? The standard keeps going up and up and up in terms of the efficiency of the home and the way that we live in it. And so I think actually the bigger question is where do you want to be on that adoption trend line? Do you want to be a little bit ahead of it, or do you want to be behind it? Because at some point the building codes are going to take all of these things into consideration. The next sort of level playing field is going to be a little higher than it was before. And so I would encourage you guys to look at this as an opportunity to get out ahead before you're going to be forced to do these things, and then there's really not as much of an economic benefit to you as a home builder.
Okay. So next topic, and we're going to see this slide in almost every single session that we have here, is what are some of the key features or feature sets that you're seeing in the industry and kind of your respective corners of the industry that are specifically available now to help address this demand. And so we'll have Nick tee us up again on this.
It has to start with building electrification, or often called decarbonization. Simply put, we've run our buildings on gas and other fossil fuels for a long time, successfully, right? Really raised the standard of living in the West. But we're realizing the limits on continuing to run our economy on fossil fuels. And if you look at the best ways to reduce carbon emissions and the harmful impacts of climate change, you have to start with buildings. And just changing them off fossil fuels to electric technologies. So that's a heat pump water heater, an induction or electric cooktop, an electric or heat pump dryer. Doing those 4 things cuts the footprint of a new home in half in California. And it's going to do similar things elsewhere, depending on the stage of your grid cleaning itself up. So the trends I'm seeing are electrification of those end uses. And the 2022 California Energy Code takes effect January 1st, 2023. So it'll be in effect when you guys get together. And it's going to require solar on every new home. We've already been doing that for 3 years in California. But it's going to set as the standard a heat pump water heater in much of the state. In other parts of the state, it's going to set an HVAC heat pump as the standard. There's also provisions in our code that may be a sign of things to come elsewhere in the country to, if you do install a gas system, you have to have it easily retrofittable to a future electric model, future-proofing that house. So you add all those things up, and there's a strong incentive for the home builder to just not run gas to the lot at all and set it up all electric from the start. Not to mention the incentives available for doing so, both at the California level and the federal level through the IRA. So that's one strong trend I'm seeing, and coming on strong. Like it's amazing how fast that has pivoted. Just 5 years ago, we treated gas and electricity interchangeably. And now recognizing that carbon emission difference, we're being more honest about the advantages of running homes on electricity. And then the other part we can talk more about later is the solar battery smart panel. But I think builders are starting to recognize that that's an attractive feature to offer buyers, to be able to say, not only can you reduce your utility bills through rooftop solar, and reduce them further through having a battery that arbitrages the time of use rates. But when the grid goes down, and it does go down, whether you're in Texas or California or elsewhere, your home just immediately switches over to running as an island, and your neighbors can bring over the food that's going to spoil in their fridge and freezer and cook it on your propane barbecue or your induction cooktop even, charge their phones. Your home can serve as that resiliency hub in your neighborhood. That's incredibly compelling to home buyers, and home buyers of all stripes, not just liberal ones.
So before I get feedback from you, I'm curious in this room, how many of you are building in California? Okay, so 2. All right, so for the rest of you, are any of you doing all electric homes right now? We got 1. 2. The rest of you are probably thinking, really? So what's the response here? What do you guys, how would you add? What other key feature sets, or do you want to elaborate on what he had to say?
Well, I mean, the electrification, we're definitely seeing it in certain localities where they're taking gas out of the equation. So that would certainly affect the builders in those communities. Yeah, we've made a switch on the electric ranges that we offer at Samsung, really focusing on the induction cooktops as part of that trend. So yeah, we've started to adapt to it as well. And in terms of where we started looking at the value of SmartThings Energy, it was on energy on electricity first, right? We will incorporate things like monitoring gas consumption and things like that, but I think obviously we're all starting to see this trend, and we're just trying to get out ahead of it.
So again, with the audience here, how many of you who aren't building all electric, but it's on your roadmap that you're starting to think about it? Okay, so not convinced here. Okay, continue.
Sure. With the water heating technology, the heat pump water heater is front and center right now, and for a few reasons. One, the number one reason is the efficiency. It's 3 and 4 times more efficient than any other water heating type product in the market. So that's the number one. You're going to save your homeowners energy bills. The second part of it is the being part of a bigger system than just itself. Most people don't think of their water heater until they don't have enough hot water or there's water on the floor and it's something they have to replace. But now, as Nick mentioned, it's becoming heat pump water heaters are becoming part of community microgrid systems. They're becoming part of utilities grid systems. Now that we have communications and smart controls, it can be a part of the whole ecosystem of the grid. So I think that's exciting. It's still on the very much on the adoption curve up front. It's still a small part of the market, but as the codes are looking further and further at this, at decarbonization, it's going to be an important part of that household. And that's what consumers want. They don't want just a high efficiency appliance. More and more are wanting to be a part of something bigger than that and have a have a plan for a backup, right?
Anything you'd add?
Nick talks about so many things that I would have also said, so I don't want to repeat a bunch of things he says, and obviously, because he works on the code that we live off of. But one thing I will say is California, he talks about California a lot, is all the things California, there is this mass exodus in California, that when people are leaving that state, what we're finding a lot, especially as we talk to home builders, is the guy leaving California that's ready to buy the next house in whatever state he moved to, and then he sees the things that California has adopted, and then instantly in his brain is, I know what that is, and that's what I want. So you see solar on a home, you see batteries on a home, you see all these electrifying smart technologies that California is having people put into the homes as they build them right now, or even that they're retro fitting into their homes. As they leave that state, those are the things that they look for when they buy a house. So that's just one kind of thought I had as he's talking about the code in California, what's happening is that, and also it's a mirror country, so utilities are going to start doing a lot of the same things, or governments in states and local municipalities will start mirroring a lot of the things that you see in California right now if they're working. So those are just kind of food for thought things I would say. Other than that, Nick talks about a lot of really important things, and the monitoring, specifically the technology that's going in there as you electrify your home, is the homeowner can now also monitor everything that's going on. And that's such a huge thing to think about, is nerding out on your house, right? Like understanding what's going on as you use things. I always remember, especially in this industry, the one thing I always think of is I couldn't leave a room as a kid without my mom yelling at me to turn off a light and whatever, right? Or not leave the door open, we're not heating the outside. We've all heard all the things. But this technology helps every household just be able to instantly turn off lights or turn on lights or whatever it is, and monitor it as well. So a lot of things that I would say that as the synergies, as I'm learning out with everyone, what everyone's saying up here is things like that for your guys' bottom line probably should really help out.
I wanted to piggyback off that a little bit because we talk a lot about systems and the efficiency of your HVAC unit, your water heater, and super important.
Got some pictures of his water heaters here. So
Yeah, exactly. Look at that beautiful thing. The thing that we're not talking about is user behavior, right? So, you can set up a smart thermostat for somebody and they use it in a dumb way, right? And maybe it's because it takes too much time, maybe it's too complex. What our goal here is at SmartThings when it comes to energy management is simplifying it and automating it, right? So making it really clear to people exactly how much energy you're using, where you're using. Like if you go to the next version of that, we've got the ability to break down energy use by system in your home, right? And if you go to the next one, you can actually see that on a monthly, weekly, daily basis, even hourly, and it's converted into dollars for you. So the first stage of these sort of features in the software side are just to make people aware of where it is that they spend that energy and when, so that you can investigate in your own life just to kind of improve that. But as we get into the second and third stages where we are now, we're talking about automating it and connecting it to the utility so that the utility pays you to save that energy. And I think that's where it's going to really mainstream this technology, is when people are actually getting paid rebates on their energy bill to save at certain times, certain parts of the day where peak demand is the highest. You get the idea. So I think user behavior and taking that out of the equation through automation is a super important part of getting to the next level with energy saving.
Okay, well, it's clear from the audience here that at least this move to decarbonize and go all electric, not convinced yet as builders that this is what their customers want. So as we start looking at what are some of the challenges, starting right here, anyone want to share why that's not on your roadmap right now? Just the belief customers don't want it, or yes, nice and loud. Oh, we're going to bring a microphone over here so we can make sure we get this on the recording. Sorry, I just put Katie on notice. I'm over here on this table.
At a minimum, my customers want gas to cook with.
Gas to cook. And that's fair.
And just a range.
Okay, that makes sense.
Looks totally different.
Top of the range, maybe even a barbecue
gas
out back.
Yep.
Okay.
I can go down to that pretty easily.
Others feel that's kind of the same thing, kind of one of the primary thing. Raise your hand if that's something that's pushing. Okay. Anyone else want to add to that? Yeah.
Certain local governments in different parts of the world have now totally banned gas ranges. Paris, France is a good example of that. They're illegal there.
Yeah.
And they've gone all induction. Do you see that trend coming to the United States?
I mean, it's happening in California. I mean, what is it here in Washington that just made what's that?
Yeah, in July of 2023, I think all the heating and air as well as the water heating has to be heat pump technology. But there are
Has to be electric.
40 to 50 probably communities that have already passed legislation to ban natural gas appliances. So yeah, there's definitely a movement in that area across the U.S.
It's happening, and I think I don't know what everyone's communities are looking like, but I know in Kansas, and this is what Nick was saying, is it's happening fast. You know, I always thought, you know, for my dryer, you know, gas is going to be the cheaper, and now, like going into this winter, you know, they're forecasting our natural gas prices to go up 4 times from what they were last winter. So that's going to change a lot of behavior and what is wanted. Brian.
I was going to say, I was just going to say, so we only build electric. We will not even put gas in. People can ask, and if they do, then they can do that on their own.
And you're in California.
I'm in California,
Yep.
but we build across the nation. So we've got factories from California.
But is that
to
your standard outside of California as well? So we build, we don't do it unless you.
Correct. And if
Okay.
they want gas, they can do that on their own. Because a little bit is because of that reason is that, you know, it's getting banned everywhere. They're not, you know, it's not going to be available. Me personally, I love my cast iron. I need flame. So, you know, I build these things, but, you know, if I was building, I'd be irritated because I love my cast iron. I like cooking with it. But that's really the only reason I like it. But we, you know, for the advantages and maybe for some builders that aren't maybe totally seeing all the trees in the forest right now, we're in a situation where, you know, like we build from the inside out. So our houses run on batteries. They're built to run on batteries. We don't have a breaker over 30 amp. Our factory that builds our houses, because we're a modular builder, isn't even connected to the grid. And that factory runs on battery. So
We're going to hear more from Ryan later this week as well.
yeah, so it's real. Like I think a lot of the times people are just going, we're just not ready. This ain't the Jetsons. It's here. It's already
coming.
happening. We're doing it.
Okay, so I'm going to pose the question now to Nick. Nick, what are some of the challenges here to implementation, and where are you seeing resistance? And we'll see. I think you might talk about some of the things we've just heard here in this room.
Yeah, I'm seeing the need for proper training of our subs, especially in installing heat pump water heaters and HVAC heat pumps. So the time is now for you home builders in your local markets to reach out to your key subs who've always been there for you and tell them, hey, we see this as a potential direction our market's going. Let's partner with your favorite manufacturer and let's get some training going on how to install heat pump water heaters. Some training going on how to install ducted mini split heat pumps, ductless mini split heat pumps. Training on how to install solar and battery with critical load panels or smart panels. Get those skills starting to bubble up in your trade group, and then you'll be ready for when you flip that switch.
Okay, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Nick hit it right on the head. Same as I was going to say is our company at Ring, we are focused on the trade, on training the trade on sustainability practices and products. And so we started this road about 3 years ago. Our goal is to train 250,000 contractors, plumbers, just on these type products, heat pump, water heating products, heat pump, air conditioning, and so forth, and any sustainability product. So I think that's the first challenge we saw is making sure the installer is comfortable with it, that they're bringing you a fair price from their installation standpoint. And so the other challenge is definitely overcoming that first cost and those first objections.
So it's almost kind of a game of chicken in that the builders are saying, I don't know if I want to do this because my subs don't know how to do it.
Right.
The subs are probably saying, well, I don't want to spend all the time training because none of my builders are asking me to do it yet. So you're trying to kind of bring those together.
Exactly. That's it. You know, we're doing on-site training. We're doing it at our factories. We have innovation learning centers where we're trying to just bring that technology and overcoming that hurdle, that knowledge hurdle of this technology that's been around for a long time. Everybody's got a heat pump in their home with their refrigerator and their freezer, and so it's not new technology, but it's just that applied differently with a water heater.
Other thoughts?
For me, you know, we would be the sub on property. So, you know,
You're ready. You're right. Call us.
But, you know, for guys like Ryan over here that do modular homes, we'll train his guys in the facilities on what to do to get their houses ready, whether they want to put solar on the modular homes before they go out of factory, or if they're going to do it on property. So there's things that we can help with for that for sure. But challenges implementation, when I see that, I mean, we just saw it. Everyone out here wants, you know, a gas range or something like that, which so do I. So I'm not going to fight that at all. But you know, the biggest implementation challenges, I think, is getting the education out there for what all of this really is and how it helps your guys' customer at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's get the microphone over for you.
So I was just going to say, one that we just did that's in PG&E territory, he just found out, he did his plans last year and everything was done, and now he just got a big kick to the stomach. They're not going to even allow that right now. So we had to redo all of his stuff to electric. So his plan is, he's like, well, fine, then I'm just going to have an island in my backyard and I'm going to cook up propane. So if people want flame, they do. Some do. Some don't care, you know? So just preference.
Over here.
What's the average cost difference between an on-demand hot water heater technology and the heat pump technology? Because obviously that's going to affect, you know, everyone in this room's margin and how, kind of how we look at, you know, the average cost of the home. And then two, how has the technology evolved to effectively heat and cool in cold weather climates? My understanding of heat pump was it didn't do well in cold weather environments.
Sure. First question is the cost difference. Generally, just product to product, for just a heat pump from tankless gas, about 2 times. It's usually what I say. But then I guess you got to look at the whole environment. You don't have the venting that you have to do with tankless products. Of course, all the gas lines, your cost for bringing that into your neighborhood. So there's different trade-offs, but just from a product to product, about 2x from that standpoint. And your second question was?
And to clarify, which one's 2x more?
The heat pump water heating is 2x more in the market, sorry. And your second question was? Cold weather, yeah. So most of the heat pump water heaters in the market, including ours, are their operating range is down to about 37, 38 degrees, and then on the hot end up to about 140. Generally, where you may run into issues are in garage installations where it may drop below that 37 degrees. That's why it is a hybrid technology. So if it does fall below that operating range, you do have the backup traditional resistance elements to kick in from that standpoint. But most installations, whether it's a basement generally, even if it's unconditioned, is going to be in the 50-degree range, or an attic. You know, you're not going to get very much higher than that 140 from that standpoint. So there's not a lot of installation locations you're going to run into problems. And there is a NEA spec out there. That's the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. It is a cold climate spec that our product meets from that standpoint, taking into account for those.
So the question was, what about the ducted technology, heat pump technology?
Yes, sorry, I'm on the water side. I can't answer that question.
We will have the next session tomorrow. We'll talk about some of the air stuff. We got a representative from.
Come by booth 314. We'll talk.
Going back to his first question, though, even though it's 2 times more expensive as a product, how does that then look for total cost of ownership? When does that break even come into play?
Sure. So if you look at, you know, I always say refer to your energy guide label. If you look at a heat pump water heater, 50-gallon heat pump water heater, your average annual cost of operation is about $104. Compare that to an electric resistance water heater, it's going to be around $450 for a similar, $425, $450. For a tankless, probably going to be in that $200 to $225 range. So you're looking at from a payback from that standpoint is about $100 to $200, depending on which product you're looking at, up to $350 compared to electric. That's where the utility incentives have really come in to help bridge that gap. Standing alone, it still has a great payback period, but once you see some of these utilities are putting $500 up to $1,000, to help buy down that first cost, it really comes down to less than 2-year payback period.
And then if you're solar, how are you piggybacking on that? What's kind of your argument there?
Well, I mean, solar is going to be a savings play long term no matter what. So, I mean, you guys, solar is an add-on, right? It's going to be an add-on. Like, you're not taking something away to put solar on. So it's always going to be an add-on, but there's a huge reason for why it works out for you guys. And hopefully I get to talk to a lot of you in the next couple of days about how that works. But, anything electric that goes into the house, solar is going to help curve whatever that extra cost is over time anyways. So there's a long-term savings play for any homeowner that has solar on their house compared to the endless fees that you have if you have natural gas or just electric without solar, right? The utilities are going to charge whatever they want to charge, and there isn't a single time that I can remember that utilities have decreased rates so drastically that it makes cool things like this obsolete. So my say for that would be solar is going to save all of these things that these guys do. Solar is going to save your customer money over time for the next 30 years easily. So.
We're lucky on the software side. Our payback is immediate because we have a free app. So that's pretty great. But we do have some challenges on the implementation side. Because it's so new, I'll give you an example, right? So all of our Samsung appliances report their own energy directly into SmartThings Energy. Our mini split heat pumps, ductless, do report their energy right into SmartThings Energy, which is great. But if you're using products from another company, one of our competitors or whatever, they may not necessarily be integrated into this model. And so one of the challenges we have are we've integrated other energy monitoring devices so we can measure a circuit in your panel or 4 circuits in your panel. And we have a number of ways to get at other sources of energy consumption in the home. So we get at it, but it's not as easy as we would like. The second challenge we have is that in order to convert this to savings for the homeowner, we really have to connect you to your utility so that you could, right through the SmartThings app, connect to your utility account and connect the 2 accounts together so that now you're automating based on the information directly from the utility. So if the high rate period is from 5 to 8 p.m., at 5 p.m., that could be a trigger to cut energy. And then we have things like artificial intelligence mode that you can run your appliances in and lots of other cool technologies. But definitely some challenges with a very fragmented energy industry.
Yeah, so those are the challenges all to just implementing it. The next spot we want to look at is challenging to marketing. So what are some of the biggest challenges to marketing these features to home buyers, and what advice would you have for our audience here as they're trying to convince potential home buyers this is what you want, this is why you should maybe pay a little bit more for it? So Nick, what's your response to that?
Right. We can't put these features into homes without turning them into higher sales prices or higher sales velocity in our communities. We got to learn to talk about them. And that's what we talked about last year on this panel in this show with Mike Mancini and C.R. Harrow. And C.R., I remember, memorably said, you can't sell this stuff in lab coats, talking about SEER ratings and lowy windows. You've got to focus on lifestyle impacts that speak to the buyers. So that starts with healthy indoor air and communicating how taking gas combustion out of our kitchens, gas combustion out of our laundry rooms, and replacing those with efficient heat pump and induction technologies, and how that reduces the amount of carbon monoxide in our indoor air, reduces carbon dioxide emissions too, of course, and how proper ventilation of our new indoor spaces is vastly superior to what the used homes of that you grew up in had, and communicating how that means less absences from school and work. It means when you're working from that home office, you're probably more productive. You're thinking more clearly because you've got the right indoor air. You're sleeping better at night behind your closed bedroom doors because they're properly ventilated and don't have residual combustion byproducts. Also, you put in that induction cooktop, you're boiling water in half the time. Your heat pump dryer is gentler on your clothes, does just as good a job. So there are key performance advantages too that come with this transition to lower emission homes, smaller footprint homes. And that resiliency one I spoke about earlier, the ability to have your home be an island in case of a blackout. And I think for most of us, that happens a couple times a year. And the ability to just flick a switch and seamlessly carry on. Sure, you're not running your air conditioner. You can't do everything with a battery backup system. But you can ride out those disturbances, which generally are a day or two, and be a source of support for the whole community. So talk about the features that way, not in lab coats, not about conservation or efficiency, but lifestyle enhancements. That's the real key for all of us.
Okay, do you guys agree? Or what would you add to that?
Yeah. For my product category, consumer awareness is a big challenge, taking it to the market. People do not interact with water heating until there is a problem, generally. It's an expected convenience to have every time.
And we're going to see that in all 5 of the sessions here in this room. Systems and structures are all kind of invisible things that the customers don't see. And so when it comes to marketing, we have to try to make them visible for them.
Sure, but what we are seeing, though, one trend we are seeing is generally from a water heater replacement, it's usually 80+% is an emergency replacement. People don't replace their water heater, that 80+ doesn't replace it until it's an emergency. We're starting to see that trend in a lot of different parts of the country where it's more like 50 or 60% weight on that emergency replacement. So that tells you there's this 30 to 40% of consumers who are making a proactive decision to replace their water heater before it goes out. So, there are a lot of reasons for that, but one is bringing awareness to the efficiency. It could be time of use rates given by their utility. It could be the decarbonization movement that they're hearing now over and over, the whole greenwashing that we're seeing. So it's certainly a trend we're seeing. So I think it's something that's important to bring to this conference is there is an awareness. It's not where we want it to be, but there is an awareness from that standpoint.
How else do we overcome these challenges to marketing?
I think the important thing to remember here is that we can get out ahead of these trends, and it can be a benefit to us. It can be a benefit to our homeowners. I do think, though, that we need to focus probably on the broader set of benefits, and making sure that we're addressing everything beyond just climate change. I think there are sort of practical benefits, as he mentioned, that can resonate with a broader group of people, right? And so focusing there, like for instance, I have a Samsung mini split heat pump system, and I love that thing. I love it at the end of the month when I get my bill, which is a lot lower than it was before. But there are other aspects of it that I love too. For instance, like zoning control, right? The ability to have one room at one temperature, another at another, and I have 4 different zones in my house. So that was a huge feature that would have also helped sell me on that beyond just the efficiency of it.
Timmy?
I mean, everything that we're talking about up here is emotional, right? Like the money is the money, but really people get emotional about being more efficient in their lives. And things like saving money because of the things that make their lives more efficient, saving time. The marketing of all of this, the guy he was speaking of is exactly right. Like if we're just going to throw science at people, everyone's going to resist. But you start talking about the things that matter, which is the time that they get back for having a more efficient house or the money that they save for having a more efficient house over time. Those are the things that sell to people, right? So that's what I'd add to that.
So one more voice I want to add, particularly to this topic, and we're going to hear more from him tomorrow. But I've kind of pulled some of his pre-recorded content to this one, is from an individual named Mike Moore. He'll do his formal introduction tomorrow, but here's his thoughts on how we can improve marketing for these specific areas.
If we're going to promote the difference between new and used, then water and energy efficiency and what's different about our home has to be presented and has to be on the front of the minds of our salespeople and presented well and demonstrated at the sales centers and the models. But even before that, with the digital transformation, we've not done a good job of just educating the buyer and their online and their shopping and explaining what our new home has that our used homes don't. What a new model home has, and I don't mean the model, I mean 2022, 2023, 2024, as we move forward, what does that home have that the home 3, 4, 5 years ago didn't have? So do we have signage in the models? Do we have things that will separate new from used and highlight how we're saving water, how we're saving money? I'm not necessarily a green buyer, but I want to be efficient and I want to save dollars and I want the newest and best. I don't want it built to 5-year-old standards. I want it built new to today's standards. So we need signage and we need pre-marketing and then signage and education for the sales team. So they're presenting these things as a differentiation between new and used. In a lot of cases, your salespeople are used home buyers, and you're going to have to get them educated to the difference between new and used right from the beginning.
I think some good thoughts as you're putting that together, and I see a few of you writing down notes and stuff, so hopefully that spoke to you. Well, we are almost out of time for this session. I would say the one other thought that I had at this kind of end thing is when I go to buy a car, we have the price up front, and then I know what the miles per gallon is, and so I can start to kind of estimate what the total cost of ownership is for a car. I have a pretty good idea what my maintenance costs are going to be for certain models of cars. Maybe some of you are doing this very well now, but it feels like we don't have that comparable thing when it comes to buying a house. It's just that first number. Here's what it is, and that's what the buyers focus on. Is there a way that we can have them expect, give me the comparable number that's the miles per gallon. What is it going to cost me to operate this house, so that some of these things that maybe do front load some of those costs, they can see that it is going to reduce the total cost of ownership over a period of time, particularly if I'm going to be in that home for 3, 4, 5 years. I can see that paying a little bit more up front is going to save me more in the long term and be more efficient. Is anyone doing something like that already and trying to quantify that? How are you doing that? Let's get the microphone out here. I saw someone nodding their head there. Will you share? Yeah.
We build down in Southwest Florida, and about 2 years ago, we started building what we call high-performance homes. Effectively, we're getting HERS ratings down in the low 40s, but it's not standard yet. We're going to be, this coming year, having a whole line of truly, by default, what we call high-performance homes, net zero ready. But right now, we offer it as a standard option on every one of our homes. It's between 5 and 8% of the base price, excluding land of the home, and it effectively gives us, you're going to cut your power bill by more than half. It's most of what these guys have been talking about, heat pump, water heater, high SEER AC, very well sealed and insulated home envelope, some things like that. And so at this point, about a third of our clients opt for that package, which is way more than the old guard of our company thought would be the case. And it's going to be growing from there. And then the added benefit, and sorry, I'll just get right to the point, of offering that system is when clients start to look at, it could be a backup full home generator, but more often than not, in our case now, it's solar arrays and battery systems. The solar array size and the battery system size only needs to be half as big because your home only uses half the power, so you get to cut that cost in half as well. And so, down in Florida, we get lots of hurricanes. We might have no power for a week, 2 weeks at a time. you don't even need to invest in a buried propane tank and a generator anymore, because these clients have solar arrays and they have batteries, and they could run their own homes for 6 months straight if they wanted to, theoretically, if the grid was down. So can I turn that into a quick question?
No, we're out of
okay.
time. But you can ask it maybe in the next session if it ties in. And you're welcome to come up and chat with any of these individuals on the show floor or right afterwards here. The customers are there. They're willing to pay more if you show them the benefits and give them the option, and realize that maybe some of the customers that you're dealing with right now that are just focused on price, maybe they're not going to buy, but there's others that have been waiting for a house that has these features, and that will prompt them to buy. So we'll kind of leave it for that for today. Next steps for each of you. You each have boardrooms that you should be going to. I believe on either the back of your card or in your packet, it tells you where you're supposed to go next. Please make sure you're there on time for your boardroom discussions. And if you have any additional questions, I will put here on the screen. Yes, thank you. Make that full screen. Is that we do have all the contact information for everyone up here. So if there was someone that you wanted to ask a question to, take that snapshot. If you can't grab them here at the moment, please feel free to reach out to them. They've all shared their information. Okay, well, please give a round of applause for our panelists here today, for our sponsor, Infinity Energy. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning for our next panel. Thanks, everyone.